Cyanotypes is really one of my favorite processes. It's one that I do every year with my students because it is pretty flexible. It's pretty easy to do. The chemicals aren't very dangerous. It's a non-silver process, which is another thing that I really like about it, which means we don't have to be underneath safe lights. We don't have to really be worried about the chemistry too much, at least not the way that we would when we're dealing with silver. The cleanup's really easy, and so it's a nice one to kind of get started. If you haven't done alternative processes before, it's a really great one to kind of get started with. We're going to look at the very simplest formula. So there's lots of different variations of the formulas, but we're going to be working with just two chemicals, potassium ferrocyanide and ferric ammonium citrate. And those two chemicals, once combined, are going to be sensitive to light. The formula we're using is just 25 grams per 100 milliliters of the ferric ammonium citrate, and then it's 10 grams for every 100 milliliters of potassium ferrocyanide. So the other things we're going to need is I use a couple of mason jars. I just have them labeled A and B on the top and bottom. Not that it really matters, but just to keep contamination and things out as I mix up new solutions and things, I'm always just putting the same stuff in each one. So again, for the ferric ammonium citrate, we're just going to be using 25 grams. So I'm just going to go and just gently kind of shake this out. So you can see there, that's 25 grams of ferric ammonium citrate. So I'm going to set this aside just for right now, and we'll go ahead and mix up our next chemical, which again is the potassium ferrocyanide. And this one's a little more like granular than powdery. This one weighs a little bit more than the powder, so it won't take nearly as much of it in order to get our 10 grams. And so now we're at 10 grams. And so we've got our 10 grams of the potassium ferrocyanide and the 25 grams of ferric ammonium citrate. So then the next thing that we need is just water. And so I'm just going to use a regular graduated cylinder, and we're looking for just 100 milliliters. And, you know, just make sure you're on a flat surface and just pour until we get to 100 milliliters. And I'll just pour that into the first solution. And then go ahead and pour our next one. There we go. And you know, it's going to dissolve relatively quickly. You just give it a few stirs so that, you know, helps mix the solutions. And then the potassium ferrocyanide, it takes a little bit longer to dissolve because, again, because of those kind of more like grains that are in it, they take a little bit longer to dissolve. So I'm just going to keep mixing and stirring until all of those are completely dissolved. You can see, you know, if you look in there, there's still a little bit of those kind of grains that are in there. And so we'll just keep stirring until we've got them completely dissolved. So there we go. There's our two solutions. You can see the kind of light yellow color of the potassium ferrocyanide and the dark kind of green color of the ferric ammonium citrate. And again, these two can be stored separately. They're not light sensitive all on their own, and so we'll just store those, and then we'll get set up for the next part, which is going to be starting to mix them together and to coat some emulsion.